Hey everyone, welcome back to part 2 of the full stack AI travel planner application. So in this video, we'll be continuing building up the application from where we had stopped the previous time. So in the previous video, we had built around 3 tabs, that is the home tab, your guides tab, as well as the profile tab. So the home screen was completely designed and we had to only design your plan trip screen, that is to implement your Google Places autocomplete, your itinerary design, as well as your expenses tab, and also the map screen once when we add the places. So let's get started. We're going to implement these 3 things in this particular video. If you find this interesting, please hit the like button and do subscribe for more such content. So let's get started off by first of all initializing the endpoints to add a particular place to a trip, right? So I'm going to scroll down over here, and over here I'm going to say app dot, again it's going to be the post method. So here it's going to be /API / your trips, and then it's going to be your trip ID, that's going to be dynamic, and then the places. It's going to be an async method with your request and the response in the callback. Here first of all I'm going to initialize my try and then catch block. So catch of error, here I'm going to say console.log error with that particular error message, and let's also try to send the response. I'm going to say result.status of 500.json with a error being failed to add place to trip. Okay, so within the try block, let's look into the implementation part. We need access to 2 things, that is the trip ID as well as the place ID. That's going to come from the front end part. So I'm going to say const trip ID is going to be equal to request.params, and const place ID is going to be equal to request.body, and we also do need the API key over here. So I'm going to say const API key is going to be equals to API key, add in your API key over here from Google. Here I'm going to check if at all no place ID is found. Then in this case, I'm going to say return result.status of 400.json with a error being place ID is required, right? Yeah, so this is done. Now the next step is I'm going to first of all check the trip and get in the trip. I'm going to say const trip is going to be equals to await access your trip module or the model dot find by ID method, and we're gonna pass in the trip ID. Okay, here I'm going to check if at all there is no trip found. Then in this case I'm going to say return result.status of 404.json with error being trip is not found. Okay, so now let's initialize the URL that's going to be required. I'm going to add in my URL over here. You can have a look at it. So it's going to be equals to maps.googleapis.com /maps API place and then details and /JSON. It's going to take in the place ID as well as the API key. So let's initialize the response over here. I'm going to say const response is going to be equals to await axios dot get of URL. So we need to import 2 things, that is your URL, your axios. That's already there. Let's also try to get in the trip. Even trip is also already initialized, which is fine. Let's continue writing down the code. So below, let's get in 2 things, that is apart from response, we're going to get in the status as well as the result. I'm going to say const status comma result is going to be equals to your response dot data. You can basically try to log the response and you should be able to figure this out. Okay, here I'm going to say if status is not equals to okay or not of details, then in this case I'm going to say return result.status of 400 dot your JSON with a error being Google Places API error. Okay, that's it. The next step is let's try to initialize your place data. I'm going to say const place data. It's going to be equals to, it's going to have in the name, that is your details dot name or a random place. Next is your phone number. That's going to be equals to details dot formatted underscore phone number or an empty string. Apart from that, your website, that's going to be equals to details dot website. Furthermore, your opening hours of the place, so opening hours, that is going to be equals to, it's going to be a comma over here, details dot your opening hours dot your weekday underscore text or an empty array if that value is not present. So apart from this, the next one is for your photos. You can take a look at it. So we are basically going to map out the details dot photos, and for each photo this is going to be the link to get the photo. You can copy down the link. Again, even this is going to take in your API key. Okay, apart from photos, the next thing is going to be for your reviews. I'm going to say details dot your reviews dot apply the map method for every review over here. We are gonna get in your author name. I'm gonna say author name, that's going to be equals to review dot author underscore name or it's going to be unknown for now. Okay, so apart from that, we are going to have your rating. I'm going to say rating is going to be equals to review dot rating or 0. Text is going to be equals to review dot text or an empty string. Right, this part is done. So now the next step is your types. It's going to be equals to details dot types or an empty array. Next is going to be equals to formatted underscore address. So this is going to be equals to details dot formatted underscore address or no address available. Right, next thing is your brief description. So let's format once. You can take a look at it. So this in turn is going to first of all check for the editorial summary dot overview, and you're going to get in the first 200 words with the help of the slice method. If that's not present, then just access the reviews, the first review, the text of the review, and then again the first 200 words. Else we're just going to say location in detail dot address components dot the long name, and it's a nice place to visit. Okay, the next part is your geometry. You've already copied down this in your model, so just use the same thing. It's going to essentially remain kind of same itself. So let's add in the geometry part over here right below your brief description. This in turn is going to have two things, your location as well as the viewport, and within the viewport we're going to have two things, your northeast as well as the southwest, containing your latitude as well as the longitude. Let's format once, and now let's try to update the places for this particular trip. Come down over here, I'm going to say const updated trip is going to be equals to await trip dot find by ID and update. So find by ID and update. This in turn is going to take in your trip ID. Here I'm going to say $push. Okay, we're going to push into the places to visit array. That's the name we have given in the backend. So access that, and we're going to push in the place data. Okay, that's it. And I'm going to say new is going to be equals to true. Let's format once. So that's it. We're going to send the response to the front end part. I'm going to say result dot status of 200 dot JSON, and you're going to pass in the message which says place added successfully. Okay, and you're going to pass in the trip data, that's going to be equals to updated trip. That's it for now. Let's come back to your front end part. Okay, I think there is some issues over here. Let's say once more. Okay, so there is an issue related to throw new type error, missing parameters name. Not sure from where this is coming. Let's try to remove this. Save. Okay, so the issue is with the correct endpoint that we have written. That is over here. So let's look into that. Okay, so let's check out probably. Okay, I think I got to know. I think the issue is with the colon. It should come after the slash. My bad. Over here. Save. There you go. That is fixed. So now let's come back to your screen, that is your plan trip screen. Then let's try to execute this, as well as let's try to open up the model first. So I'm going to say plan trip screen. So I think the state for the model is already initialized. We just need to design that up, and we also do have this part over here. Okay, so let's try to design the model that is right below. Yeah, let's say over here. I'm going to say model. Let's take it from React Native. So here we're going to pass in some options. I'm going to say is visible, or instead of taking it from the model, let's try to install a dependency that is React Native model. So I'm going to say yarn add React Native model. Let's install this, and we're going to make use of that. Remove this. And once it's done, we're gonna we're gonna import it from the React Native model, and then we're gonna implement that. Yeah, this is done. Imported from React Native model. So I'm gonna go over here and then paste it. This in turn is gonna take in the prop that we just had written, that is visible. It's gonna be equals to your model visible. I think the state for this is already written. There you go, this one. Okay, here we're going to first of all check the condition. Apart from that, we're going to have on backdrop press. It's going to take in a function, and over here we're going to say set model visible to be of false. Apart from that, set selected date to be of null. Next we have set model mode. We basically have around 2 to 3 model modes. Now this one, set model mode to be of place. Okay, the next thing is the expenses part. We're going to do that later. So these are the required things. Here let's first of all check the condition stating that if my model mode is going to be equals to place, or your model mode is going to be equals to AI. In this case, open up a bracket, and then let's add in the question mark, else we're going to show some other design. Here I'm going to initialize my fragments initially. Okay, here let's basically try to have a text. Here I'm going to say if my selected date is present, then it should be equals to, take in your backticks, it's going to be add place to $day.js of selected date dot format it into this particular value DDD and then date and month. Else it's going to be equals to a search for a place. Okay, so now we're going to furthermore check if at all the model mode equals to place, then we're only going to show the Google Places autocomplete design. Okay, let's add in that code over here that is right below your text. Okay, I think I messed up the format method. We need to give in the full date, and then here the format is going to come. Okay, just like this. Below the text, we're going to have your condition. If your model mode is going to be equals to place, and here we're going to show the Google Places autocomplete. Import that. This in turn is going to have a bunch of options. So I'm going to say placeholder. It's going to be equals to search for a place. Apart from that, I think it's already imported. Yeah, it is imported. So the next thing is your fetch details is going to be equals to true. Apart from that, we're going to say enable powered by container false. Furthermore, we're going to have your on press being given, and apart from that, we also need to provide in the query as well. So query is going to be equals to key, that's going to be equals your Google underscore API underscore key. Language is going to be equals to English. Okay, apart from that, you're going to pass in the styles. Basically, these are the styles. It is similar to the previous one. That is, while creating the new trip screen, you can copy down the same styles over here. Okay, you need to add in the Google API key. I'm going to do it at the top over here. Let's see over here. So const Google API key is going to be equals to ABC. Okay. So yeah, that's it for now. So the next step is we need to implement your on press functionality. So once you press on press, what exactly needs to happen? We're going to write that over here. On press, take in a function that is going to be an async function. Here I'm going to say async. It's going to have your data as well as your details, which is initially null. And over here we're going to implement your try catch block. So I'm going to say try and then catch. So catch of error here. Yeah, let's try to implement the error block first. I'm going to say console.log error, that particular error message. Within your try block, let's try to get in the place ID. So place ID is going to come from the Google Places autocomplete. I'm going to say const place ID is going to be equals to data dot place underscore ID. Let's initialize your URL over here. That's going to remain similar as we saw in the API folder. The next thing is getting your result is going to be equals to await, make use of the fetch method of your URL. Furthermore, I'm going to say const JSON is going to be equals to await result.json. I'm going to say if the JSON dot status is not equals to OK, or not of JSON dot result. In this case, I'm going to say throw new error saying Google Places API error. I'm going to say $JSON dot status or no error, no result found. Okay, that's it. So now let's try to initialize a variable over here. I'm going to say const d is going to be equals to your JSON dot your result. Here let's try to get in all of the place details. I'm going to say const place is going to be equals to ID, that's going to be your place ID. Name, it's going to be equals to d dot name or unknown place. Next, your brief description as well as the photos. So you can copy that down. This is for the brief description as well as for the photos. Apart from photos, we're going to have the next one that's going to be a formatted address. So formatted underscore address, it is going to be equals to d dot formatted address or no address. Okay, next thing is your opening hours. So I'm going to say opening hours is going to be equals to d dot opening hours, opening underscore hours dot weekday underscore text. Right, else the next thing is for your phone number. I'm going to say phone number d dot formatted underscore phone underscore number or a empty string. Furthermore, your website, I'm going to say website is going to be equals to d dot website the next thing is going to be for your types, geometry, as well as the reviews. I'm going to add in the remaining ones. Your geometry, it's going to contain location, latitude 0, longitude 0, and these are the required values. And your types is going to be d dot types. Reviews is going to be this one. Okay, let's try to save the file. So first of all, we're going to say if at all the selected date is present over here, then in that case I'm going to say await handle place to itinerary, handle place to itinerary of the details, that is your place as well as the selected date. So the reason we are writing this condition is because in the first part, that is in the overview tab, there is no date selected. We can directly add in the places, whereas in the itinerary tab we need to add the place only to a specific date. So that's the reason we're going to write the condition just like this, else it's just going to be directly tied to add the place. So let's do that over here. It's going to be equals to handle add place. I'm going to say await handle add place of the data. Let's define the function, that is handle add place. I'm going to say const handle add place is going to be equals to async function here. Let's have in your try as well as your catch block, catch of error initially. Let's try to log the error. I'm going to say console.log error with that particular error message, and here I'm going to say set error. Not sure if we have the state for this. Set error to be of error dot your response dot data. So I'm going to say response dot your data dot your error. Okay, within a try block, let's try to create the place ID, get the access to that. I'm going to say const place ID is going to be equals to data dot place underscore ID. Here I'm going to say if not of place ID or not of trip dot underscore ID, then we cannot implement this. Then I'm going to say set error to be of place or trip ID required, and then directly try to return from the function. Else let's get the token. I'm going to say const token is going to be equals to await get token. So this get token is going to come from your use auth. Add in that value over here from clerk expo, import that. All right, that's done. So over here we're going to say await axios dot post method is going to be your URL, that is http localhost 3000 /API /trips $ your trip ID /places. This in turn is going to take in your place ID, and let's pass in your headers. I'm going to say headers authorization, that's going to be equals to bearer token bearer $token. Let's format once. Okay, this is done. So after this, I'm just gonna call the function that is await fetch trips. So await fetch trips, and I'm gonna say set model visible to be false, and then set selected date to be null. Set selected date to be null. So we need to implement that function that is fetch trips. Okay, so not sure if we already have the endpoint for that. Let's try to create, if at all we do not have it, okay, inside of the server.js file. Yeah, so we need to get the place for a specific trip. I mean, we need to get all of the places for a specific trip. Let's come back over here. Okay, so here let's try to write the endpoints to get the places for a particular trip. I'm going to say app.get, that's going to be /API / your trips, and then / your trip ID, right? Here it's going to have your async method with the request and the response. Let's try to implement your try catch block, catch of error over here, right? Here I'm going to say console.log error with that particular error, and we're going to say result.status.json with the error being failed to fetch the trips. Right, within the try block, let's get in two things: your trip ID, that is going to be equals to request.params, your clerk user ID, that is going to be equals to request.query. If not of clerk user ID, then in this case I'm going to say return result.status of 401 .json with error being user ID is required. Okay, and here let's try to initialize the user. I'm going to say const user is going to be equals to await user.find1. Okay, here it's going to be of the clerk user ID, right? Here I'm going to check again if not of user. In this case I'm going to say return result dot status of 404 dot json with error being user not found. Okay, that's it. Now let's try to get in the trip. If both the values are present, I'm going to say const trip is going to be equals to await access the trip dot find by ID of your trip ID, and we're going to also make use of the populate method and get in two things: your host as well as the travelers. So we would also have the information for this as well. So if not of trip, I'm going to say return result.json, result.status of 404 .json with error being no trip is found. That's it. I'm going to say result.status of 200 .json of your trip. That's it. So this is the endpoint for getting all of the details or the places for a particular trip. Let's come back to your plan trip screen. Let's try to call the function fetch trips. Okay, over here let's say we're going to define it over here. I'm going to say const fetch trips is going to be equals to use callback. It's going to have async method, and it's going to be dependent upon your trip dot ID, not over there, as well as your user. Here I'm going to have in my try catch block, so try catch of error. We're going to try to log the error over here. And within the try block, let's get in the clerk user ID. So I'm going to say const clerk user ID is going to be equals to your user.id. Right here, I'm going to check if no clerk user ID or not of trip._id, then we cannot call the function. So I'm going to say set your error to be of user or trip ID is missing, and then directly try to return from the function. Let's try to get the token. So it's going to be equals to await get token. This function is already defined from clerk. Okay, let's initialize the response. I'm going to say const response is going to be equals to await axios dot get method. This is going to be your URL http localhost 3000 /API / your trips / your trip ID. This in turn is going to take in your params. I'm going to say params over here, that is your clerk user ID. Furthermore, your headers, we need to pass in the authorization. I'm going to say authorization bearer token $token. Okay, so this should be basically trip._id, not this one. Okay, just like that. So now let's try to set the trip data. So the state for this has already been set. So const trip set trip is going to be equals to use state of initial trip. So here I am going to say set the trip to be of the response.data. So here I'm going to say set trip to be of response.data your trip. So next step is for the error. I'm going to say set error to be of null. That's it. Okay, so this part is done, and let's also have in a use focus effect such that if at all the screen comes to focus, we're going to show the latest trips always. Here I'm going to say use focus effect, which in turn is going to have your use callback. And I'm going to say fetch trip. Here call in the fetch trip function. That's it. Let's try to save. Okay, so yeah, we could actually try to give this a try, and once we implement it, we're going to show the places right below your text input, that is over here in the return block, that is in the design part. Okay, so let's try to give this a try. I'm going to say add a place. Yeah, first of all we need to set the model to be true once when we press on the text input. So let's come down to the point where we have add a place, search for that. Yeah, this is the one. So let's try to initialize the on press for this. I'm going to say on press, take in a function, and here we are gonna given a bunch of options. Set selected date to be null because we want it to open freshly every time we open it up. Set model mode to be of place, then set model visible to be of true. Save. Let's give this a try. Okay, so I think we have messed up with the design part. Yeah, we're able to see only that, but yeah, there is some issue with the design. Let's look into that. Basically for the model, probably the styling is not given. That's the reason it's kind of erroring out. So let's start off basically from the style for the model. I'm going to say style. This in turn is going to say justify content flex end, and we're going to give it a margin of 0. And for this particular text. I think I forgot to add in a view, probably because of that it's not coming correctly fine. Let's add in the view over here. I'm going to say view, and within that let's try to add in these two details for now. For the view, let's provide in the class name. Okay, it's going to be equals to bg white, padding of 4, rounded on the top, 2xl, then height is going to be of 60%. Okay, just like this. Let's try to format once, and probably the condition should come within that, not below this. So let's modify that. Okay, so I think I just messed up the condition over here. So here we also had to give this condition instead of the previous one. Let's make that change. So here we're going to check stating that if your model mode is equals to place, which is correct, and your selected tab should not be equals to itinerary, then only we're going to show this piece of design. So I've just saved the file. Else we're going to look into the remaining part. By default it's null. So make sure to change that condition. Let's try to give this a try. I'm going to add in my API key. So let's say I'm going to add in a place for Kurg. Let's say be false. Or let's say this one, Hebe waterfalls. Okay, so there is an issue. It says trip ID doesn't exist. Let's look into that. So handle add place. So not sure why exactly it's not showing the trip ID. Let's try to log the details. I'm going to say console.log data and then trip._id. Yeah, so we do have that, but not sure why it's not taking the place. Let's add a different place. Let's say again be false. Okay, trip ID doesn't exist. Let's look into the function where we have messed up. Okay, my bad. Why did I write that log? Okay, wrong place. Let's add it over here in this function. So yeah, it is present. Let's try to error adding place. Okay, so trip ID doesn't exist. Let's see why exactly that's not coming in the backend part. I don't think there is any issues. Okay, I think this is the one. My bad. So here it should be equals to trip._id instead of just trip ID. Probably because of that it is erroring out. Let's make that change. So trip._id. Now probably it should work. Let's change the place again. Be false. Okay, now there is a different error. Okay, so it is some issue related to parsing. So let's initially check out our previous code. Not the previous code. Let's first of all check our server.js, and I'll verify with my previous code where exactly is the issue. It must be related to this itself. Okay, so starting off from this one. Okay, so find by. Okay, I think I got the issue. So yeah, it is with respect to find by ID. So it should be just trip ID, not by passing within an object. So that's the reason it's kind of erroring out. Save. Let's give this one more try. I'm going to say be false again. Okay, so there is no issues, but actually the model should close. That is what is expected. But let's check out our code where exactly it's not triggering the close of the model. So plan trip screen over here, handle add place. So let's try to not call the function. Let's try to just close the model. Let's come back over here. I'm gonna add, let's say I'm gonna add this place. Okay, I think there is a 400 error. Let's come back. Let's do it one more time. Not sure, I'm not able to see that correctly. Yep, so it is error. So it says error adding place accused error request failed with status code 400. Probably because of this one, I guess. Okay, so let's try to remove the headers once. Let's try to add the place without that. And let's try to log in and log out once. So cool. Okay, so not sure why we are getting that issue. So let's check out again our server.js file. Okay, I think I got to know the issue. There is no API key. That's my bad, because API key is by default ABC for now. I need to add in my API key, then it's going to work. So I've just added in my API key. Let's give this one more try. Hopefully it should work now, because we have fixed all of the errors. So this one, and there you go. Finally we have done that. So let's check that out in the MongoDB once. We should be able to get that. Also, let's try to refresh our function. Let's get in that is await fetch strips. Probably it was here itself. Yeah, safe. All right, so there is no issues with this as well. It is running fine. Okay, let's try to verify in the backend once. I'm going to come back to my project and clusters, browse collections. So for the trips, we have Coorg. Yeah, I think there are 2 places created with the same thing, and boom, there you go. Places to visit. The first place is added, and we do have all of the information, that is Coorg Marriott Resort and Spa, all of these particular details. Okay, so with the help of this, we're going to start styling out basically your card. Okay, so if you would check out the design over here, we have already given that is render place card if it is present. So let's try to render the design for the render place card over here. So over here, this in turn is going to take in your place as well as index. Okay, so here let's try to get in your is active or not. I'm going to say const is active is going to be equals to if your active place. I think we need to define that active place. Yeah, so let's define the active place over here. It's going to be equals to active place dot name is going to be equals to your place dot name. So let's define the state for that. Active place, it's already there. Not sure if that's a correct spelling. Yeah, it is the same thing itself. So yeah, let's write that condition over here. So apart from that, I'm going to say return. We're going to have a view being initialized. Within the view, we're going to have your touchable opacity. I'm going to say touchable opacity. Within that, we're going to have your image being shown. This in turn is going to have your source, which in turn is going to have your URI, that is going to be equals to place dot photos of 0. And let's provide in the class name for this. I'm going to say class name width of 24, height of 24, and rounded is going to be large XL. Save, and boom, there you go. Finally, we're able to see that place, which is working pretty fine. So below the view, we're going to have your, below the image, we're going to have your view. This view in turn is going to have the text, which is going to show the place dot name. As you can see, that's looking fine. Below the text, we're going to have the description. I'm going to say place dot your description or brief description. Okay. Apart from this or we're going to say no description available. Okay, that's looking fine. Apart from that, your final view, here we're going to say render stars of your get average rating of your place dot reviews. We need to define this function. And apart from that, we're going to have one more text within this text itself, which is going to show your get average rating of places.reviews, place.reviews. Okay, so I'm going to say get. First of all, let's define that. That is render stars. Let's say over here, I'm going to say const render stars is going to be equals to, it's going to take in your rating of type number. Here I'm going to say const stars is going to be equals to an empty array. Const full stars is going to be equals to your math.floor of your rating. And I'm going to say const half star is going to be equals to rating modulus 1 greater than or equal to 0. I mean 0.5. I'm going to use a for loop for let I equals to 0, I is less than 5, and then I plus plus. If your I value is less than your full stars, then in this case I'm going to say stars dot push this is going to be stars, not start. So yeah, stars dot push of your iron icons key is going to be I, and we're going to have your name is going to be equals to star. Okay, and size is going to be equals to 14. Color is going to be equals to FFD and then 700, right? Else if your I is going to be equals to your full stars and half star, you're going to have a star half. Copy this down and here make it as a half star or star half. Else it is going to be the final icon, that's going to be star outline. Just try to return the stars. Let's try to define the get average rating over here. I'm going to say const get average rating is going to be equals to reviews here. I'm going to say if not of reviews or reviews dot length is equals to 0, then I'm going to say return 0. I'm going to say const total is going to be equals to, make use of the reduce method. I'm going to say reviews dot reduce. It's going to take in the sum as well as the review. Here I'm going to say sum plus your review dot rating. Pass in the initial value to add on, that's going to be 0. Here I'm going to say return total divided by your reviews.length dot toFixed of 1. Okay, that's it. So this is what we're going to render over here, and I'm also going to pass in the styling for this. Let's try to add in the view with the styling. Save, and there you go. Just like that, we are going to show both the reviews in stars as well as your total number of reviews with the point over here. That's it. So yeah, apart from that, let's try to give the class name for the view over here, topmost view, class name. This in turn is going to have a margin bottom of 4, then a BG of white, rounded XL, shadow of SM, overflow hidden. It's going to have a border and then border gray of 100. Save, reload. So there you go, that's looking fine. So for the reachable opacity, let's provide in the class name. It's going to come in a row fashion. So I'm going to say class name flex row items of center. So item center. That's looking good. For the image is already given for this particular view. I'm going to say class name flex of 1, padding of 3. Okay. For the text, pass on the class name. So text gray of 600, and then font bold, text base, margin bottom of 1. That's looking nice. So for this particular text, let's pass on the class name. Here it's going to have a text gray of 600. So text gray 600, text of small, leading of 5, and number of lines is going to be equals to 2. As you can see, just like that, it's looking pretty clean. This is done. If at all it's active, first of all, let's set the active state onto the touchable opacity. If you press on that, we're going to show more information. I'm going to say on press, taken a function and set active place to be of is active. Set active place, if is active, set it to be null, else set it to be place. That's it. Format once. I think is active, not sure why it's not taking the value. I think yeah, question mark, not colon. So here below the touchable opacity, we're going to write the condition stating that if is active is true, and we are going to have a view being shown where the remaining designs is going to show up. Okay, this in turn is going to have another view within this. So within this, we're going to have one more view, which in turn is going to have, iron icons. So let's try to get that iron icons over here. I mean self-enclosing. Name is going to be location. So location, and your size is going to be equals to 16, right? Color is going to be equals to 4B5563, and below that we're going to have a text which shows address. Below that we're going to have a view. Below the view we're going to have a text which basically shows your place.formatted address. I'm going to say place.formatted underscore address. Press on this and boom, there you go. It is active. We're going to show the full design for that. So class name, padding of 4, BG of gray of 50, border top, border gray of 200. Okay, that's looking nice. The inner view, it's going to have a margin bottom of 4. So class name mb4, and for this it's going to have a flex of row. So class name over here, flex row, and then it's going to have items center, just like that. And for your text, we're going to give this styling. So class name, this in turn is going to have text of SM, font of semi-bold, text gray of 700, ml of 1. Okay, that's looking clean. For this, let's pass on the styling. So class name, text of SM, text gray of 600, and a margin top of 1. As you can see, that's looking pretty clean. This part is done. Now let's check out if at all there are any opening hours and then show the design for that. It's going to come over here. So I'm going to say if my place dot opening hours dot my length is greater than 0, and here we are going to have a view. Okay, within this view we are going to have another view, and here I'm going to have my icons. This in turn is going to have a name that is going to be equals to time. Okay, and size is going to be equals to 16. Furthermore, your color, it's going to be equals to 4b, 55 and then 63. Okay, so for some reason I don't think this is available, so it's not going to show that, right? So below the view we're going to have a text. I'm going to say text over here. Okay, not over here, within the view. This is going to show the get current day hours of the place dot opening hours. I'm going to paste in the code for that. Let's try to define this function, get current day hours over here. I'm going to say const get current day hours is going to be equals to opening hours, array of strings. Here I'm going to check if not of opening hours or opening hours dot your length is equals to 0, then directly say return hours is unavailable. Okay, and I'm going to say const today is going to be equals to your day.js dot apply the format method, pass in all of the format structure and then 2 lowercase, get in the today hours. I'm going to say const today hours is going to be equals to opening hours dot apply the find method for every line, convert it into lowercase dot to lowercase dot starts with today, because we're going to only show the today's opening hours based on whatever day is today. And I'm going to say return today hours or opening hours of 0. That's it for now. Let's try to save. Yeah, probably for this it's not present, so it's not gonna show anything as of now. Apart from that, the next step is for your phone number. Let's try to add in that design, and even the style for this, class name margin bottom of 4, and for this I'm going to say class name, it's going to be a flex of row, item center, and for this basically it's going to have a text format. The next thing is for your phone number. Let's try to add in that. I'm going to say place dot your phone number and let's initialize a view. Within this view we're going to have again these two texts. this particular view. So here it's going to have your call icon. There you go. It does has the phone number, so it is showing that particular detail. Below that, it's going to have a text, which is going to show your phone. And below this particular view, we're going to have a text, which is going to show your place.phone number. Right? That's looking fine. Let's pass on the class name for this. So class name, this is going to be equals to your margin bottom of 4. And for this, let's pass on the class name. So class name is going to be equals to text of SM, font of semi bold, and then text gray of 700, margin left of 1. That's looking nice. If you probably want to increase the font size, you can do so. So class name for this in turn is going to say text of SM, text gray. So text gray of, let's say 600, and then an empty of 1. Cool. That's looking nice. Apart from this, next we have is for the website. Let's try to get in this details over here. I'm going to say place dot your website. We're going to show something similar. This is going to say website over here instead of phone. Below that, it's going to be place dot website. Save, and boom, there you go. Even for this, we do have the information. It's showing correctly. Let's change the icon. It's going to be equals to the globe icon. Okay, that's looking pretty good. This step is done. We can actually try to underline this. So for this text SM, text blue of 500, let's change the color. And I'm going to underline empty of 1. As you can see, just by that design, it's looking pretty clean. And I'm going to say number of lines is going to be equals to, let's say 2 or 1 maximum, not more than that. Yeah, I think 2 is looking better. This is done. So now the next step is for your reviews. Let's try to add in that code over here. I'm going to add in the code for the reviews. First of all, you're going to check something similar. If at all your places dot reviews dot length is greater than 0, then try to initialize a view. Again, with similar view with a text saying review. You try to show the first review, for the first 100 characters, and just try to show the render star over here. Okay, that is with the help of same functionality which we have defined just a few minutes back. We're going to show that. Let's try to save the file, and there you go. This is the review. We do have the review, and we do also have who has submitted the review as well as the star, and even the review that they've given, that's 5 on 5. The next and final thing is for the types. Let's try to code that out. I'm going to say my place dot types dot length if it's greater than 0, and let's try to render a view. Okay, within this view, I'm going to have another view being shown, and this view in turn is going to have your icons. Let's just copy that down. Let's make the change for the icon which we need. That's going to be the price tag over here. So I'm going to say price tag. Size is going to remain 16. Color is going to remain 485563. Okay, I think I messed up with the name. Price tag. Yeah, cool. That's looking fine. I think let's use this for all of the other icons. 4.8 instead of 4b. Okay, my bad. Sorry, it is 4b itself. Not able to see that right. So 4. Save. Okay. Below this, we're going to have the text which says categories. Copy that down with the styling. Here I'm going to say categories format. Save. Yeah, so we do have that design. So here we're going to say render place types below your text, below your view. Take in the view, close it, and then we're going to say render place types of place dot types. Let's try to define this function right at the top. Here I'm going to scroll up, and let's see over here I'm going to say const render place types is going to take in your types, again array of strings. Here first of all let's try to get in the allowed types. I'm going to say allowed types is going to be equals to all of these strings. Okay, you can copy that down, and I'm going to say const filtered types is going to be equals to your types dot filter. So for every type over here I'm going to say allowed types dot includes of the type or a empty array. So here let's try to get in the type colors. So for each of the type we're gonna have in these colors. So these basically names are gonna come from the Google itself, that is from your places dot types. So accordingly we're gonna filter, and then based on whatever it is, that is for that particular place, if at all it's an establishment, then we're gonna show this color. If at all it's a point of interest, then this color. If at all it is a tourist attraction, then the blue color. Something like that. Let's try to return. I'm gonna say filtered types dot apply the map function. So for every type and then the index, let's try to return a view design over here. I'm going to say view. This in turn is going to show in the text. I'm going to say type dot replace with this particular character. Actually going to add in my full view for this along with the design, and there you go. Finally it's working absolutely fine. Let's format once and then let's try to save. So let's scroll down over here, and then let's try to define the style for your types.length, because it's currently in a column fashion. It should come into a row fashion. Initially class name over here. Again similar flex of row, items center, save. That's looking good. For the categories it's already given. For the view, let's provide the class name. That's the final style over here. So class name. Here I'm going to say flex row, flex wrap. So once it completes the position, it's going to take in the next position and then cover up the space. So empty of one, and there you go. Just like that, it's looking pretty clean. Once you press on that, active is set to false. It is going to come back to the previous position, just like that. Let's try to add one more place to verify it's working fine. So I'm going to search for Dubai Elephant Camp. Correct spelling. Yeah, this is the one. And boom, there you go. So this doesn't has the brief description, so it's giving undefined. Let's press on this. It's going to give more details, just like that. So this is basically a tourist attraction in Coorg. Okay. So yeah, we have finished setting up the first part, that is adding a place to your places to visit array or places to visit list. This part is done. So the next step, let's focus on designing the map. So once if the user presses on this map screen or the map icon, this should be navigated to your map screen, and all the places to visit places should be shown onto the map. And at the bottommost part, as you saw in the demo part of the video, we're going to show the place cards, and as and when the user scrolls the cards horizontally, we need to map to that particular location and then show that point wherever it is present. So let's implement that. That is going to be the next step. So let's try to create a new screen, that is your map screen, into our screens folder. Here I'm going to say new screen, map screen.tsx, rnfes to get the Sujan code snippet, save the file. Let's try to include the screen into our home stack over here. So here, copy this down. This is going to say, let's say map, and the component is going to be equals to map screen. Save the file. Let's come back to your folder, not the folder, your plan trip screen, and where we have the icon, just try to navigate to that particular screen. Copy this down and paste it over here. Okay, and I'm just going to remove all of these things. Just we're going to navigate for now. Yeah, I think we also need to pass some information. So here I'm going to say map, that's the name of the screen. we are basically going to pass in the places to visit because we need to design those cards at the bottommost part. So I'm going to say places is going to be equals to trip dot places to visit or a empty array. Let's try to format once and then let's try to save the file. Let's try to give this a try. And there you go, we're coming correctly to the map screen. Let's start looking into the design of the map screen and then let's try to complete it. So initially let's try to implement the type place over here. I'm going to say type place is going to be equals to id of type string, name of type string, brief description of type string, photos is going to be array of strings, so just like this, and formatted address is going to be equals to string. Then your geometry is going to be an object, within that again an object containing two things, your lat as well as your longitude. The next step is for your map root params, whatever is going to come. So I'm going to say type map root params is going to be equals to an object. It's going to be your map screen. Here it's going to be places and it's going to be of type place. Okay, that's it. Let's try to initialize a route. Here I'm going to say const route is going to be equals to your use route, and it's going to have in your route prop, import that from React navigation, and then it's going to take in your map root params. Here it's going to be your map screen. Okay, that's it. I'm going to say const places is going to be equals to your root dot params dot your place, or places or a empty array. You can try to log the places if you want to. Let's try to initialize the index to let's try to initialize the index to check which particular place is kind of selected. I'm going to say const selected index comma set selected index is going to be equals to use state, initially 0. We're also going to initialize the ref for the map. I'm going to say const map ref is going to be equals to use ref. Import use ref from your React Native, and first of all let's install the dependency that is React Native maps. I'm going to say yarn add React Native maps, enter. So yeah, this is installed, so we're going to make use of this package and then let's try to complete designing this one. So here it's going to be of map view, initially null. Okay, so yeah, map ref is initialized. Let's also try to initialize your flat list ref. I'm going to say flat list ref is going to be equals to use ref, and it's going to be flat list, import that from React Native, pointing to null at the initial state. Let's try to start designing your return block for the design over here. View is already there. Initialize your map view. This in turn is going to have your places being mapped. I'm going to say places dot apply your map function for every place as well as your index. Let's try to render a marker that you saw in the demo part of the video. Here I'm going to say marker, import from React Native maps. So this is gonna come like this itself. Yeah, marker is imported. Okay, here we're gonna pass in two things to the marker: key, index, then your coordinates. That's compulsory to pass for the marker. Coordinate is going to be equals to, in this format, latitude. That's going to be your place dot your geometry dot location dot your latitude. Similarly, longitude, it's going to be equals to place dot geometry dot location dot your longitude. this step is done. So within that, we're going to have a view. And over here, it's basically going to be a self-enclosing view. Let's pass on the internal styling for this. It's going to have a background color. So if at all your index is going to be equals to your selected index, which is true in the first case, it's going to have a blue color, else this color code, that is FF3B30. So this is going to be 007AFF. We're also going to have some padding also given. I'm going to say padding if your index is going to be equals to selected index, then 10, else 6. A slide border radius of 20, border width as well of 2, and border color of FFF. That's it. Let's try to save the file. Before that, we need to provide in some options to the map as well as the design. For the view, let's provide in a flex of 1. For the map view, it's going to have in a bunch of options being given. Ref initially, that's going to be a map ref. Okay. Apart from that, a style, I'm going to give it internal styling, flex of 1, height of 100%. Then I'm going to say initial region. Here I'm going to say latitude. It's going to be your places of 0 dot geometry dot your location dot latitude. If that's not present, a hard-coded value 58. Else your longitude. Again, similarly, places of 0 dot your geometry dot location dot longitude, else 76.6394. And it's also going to take in 2 more things, your latitude delta as well as longitude delta. I'm going to pass in 1 as well as 1. So yeah, this is your design for your map. Let's see what exactly happens once we save the file. Save it. Okay, so some issues coming related to this one. Turbo module registry.get enforcing. Not sure why this is coming. Let's try to reload once. Let's try to clear off the app and let's start off the app from the starting point. So npx export start. Let's press on I to open it up on the simulator. Okay, I think I even got this error while building this application previously, but not sure what fix did I give. So let's look into it. Let's look into the package.json once. Probably I installed a package. Yeah, prop types is there, even React Native random values is also there, but yeah, probably let's check out actually the version of the React Native maps I'm using in the previous one. Yeah, so previously I used 1.2.1. I'm going to use the same one. Not sure why for this one it's kind of erroring out. Let's give this a try. I'm going to use this version of React Native maps 1.20.1. Save. I'm going to do yarn over here so that it gets updated with that version. Reload the app, cut the server, and then I'm going to try it out once again. Let's see hopefully what exactly happens. Press on I to open up on the simulator. And there you go, IO is bundled. Okay, so we do have that issue again. Not sure why exactly it is coming up. So let's just try to Google that error out. Yeah, so it's essentially the same errors. Yeah, so these are the steps they've done. React Native maps, or let's do one thing. Let's install it using Expo. Let's see. Let's give that one more try. I'm going to say Expo React Native maps. Probably this might work. Let's give it a try. Copy this down, and first of all, I'm going to uninstall this package. I'm going to say yarn remove React Native maps, enter. Yeah, that got removed. Let's try to install with Expo. Let's actually verify the version which it installs. Okay, so it's installing the right one, 1.2.1. Hopefully it should not come this time. Let's give it one more try. Reload the app, cut the servers, again try to open up the application. Hopefully now it should not give the error. Let's give it one more try. And there you go, finally that error is gone, which is good. So let's actually try and verify if at all it's opening up in your map screen or not. I'm gonna press on this one as well as this, and boom, there you go. We do have two places which is being shown because we had two places into our places to visit list. This is one place, this is the other place. So we need basically a better view for the user. So let's try to add in some options. That is basically we're going to make use of that method which we used previously, that is fit to coordinates. For that we're going to implement a use effect. Let's go ahead and do that within your map screen. So minimize this. Here I'm going to have in my use effect, I'm going to say use effect. Okay, here basically I'm going to check if my places dot length is greater than 0 and my mapref.current value is present. Let's try to initialize the coordinates. I'm going to say const coordinates is going to be equals to your places dot apply the map method for every place over here. Here I'm going to have in my latitude it's going to be equals to your place dot geometry dot location dot lat, and your longitude, that is going to be equals to place dot geometry dot your location dot your longitude. Okay, here I'm going to make use of my method, that is fit to coordinates. Here I'm going to say mapref dot current dot, we do have that method fits to coordinates. This in turn is going to take in the coordinates, pass in that value that we just defined at the top, so coordinates, and we're going to pass in two things, edge padding as well as the animated to be true. Here I'm going to say edge padding, it's going to be an object. I'm going to pass in top 150, then we're going to say right 150, bottom of 150, then left of 150. Apart from that, I'm going to say animated is going to be true. Save the file, and there you go. Just like that, it's working pretty good. We are able to see a closer view, and properly the edge padding is also being applied, and the design is looking pretty clean as well. So yeah, that's it. So now the next step is we're going to show those scrollable bottom cards, that is basically by using your flat list. So just below your map view, render another view. I'm going to have flat list, it's already imported from React Native. Getting the data, first of all passing the ref, that's going to be your flat list ref. Okay, data is going to be equals to places, furthermore it's horizontal, and I'm going to say paging enabled, show horizontal scroll indicator, set it to be false, and key extractor. Here I'm going to take in the index, and I'm going to say id.toString. This step is done. Next thing is we're going to say declaration rate. I'm going to set it to be fast. Yeah, so apart from that, we're going to say content container style. This in turn is going to have a padding horizontal of the spacing value that we need to define it. So let's go on to the top and then define two things, that is the card width as well as the spacing. Here I'm going to say const width is going to be equals to dimensions dot get of window, Then here I'm going to say const your card width is going to be equals to width multiplied by 0.8, and const spacing is going to be equals to 12, right? Yeah, so here, yeah, after content container style, let's look into the next step, that is on scroll. What needs to be done? So on scroll is going to be equals to on card scroll. So we need to define that bit, and let's implement our render item. Here I'm going to say render item. This in turn is going to take in the item itself, destructure that, and here let's try to render a view for each of the item in the list. Format once. Okay, so the first thing is we're going to have the text that is going to show the name of the place. It's going to be simple, item.name. If all it's not present, unknown place. Okay, below the text we're going to have another condition stating that if my item dot brief description is present, and go ahead and then show a text for this. This text is going to show item dot brief description, right? Let's pass on the class name for this. It's going to have, a text of small, text gray of, let's say, 500, then a margin top of 1. Let's format over here. And for the view, I'm going to provide the style. It's going to have a width of your card width, margin right of the spacing. For this piece of text, I'm going to give it a text of base, furthermore font of semi bold, and text of black. Okay, so apart from your brief description, we're going to have the photos being shown. So I'm just going to add in the design for that right below this one. I'm going to say if at all my item.photos of the first photo is present, then go ahead and then show the image. Import image from React Native. This is the style for the image, height of 24, width of full, rounded LG, and then a margin top of 2. The next thing is for your formatted address. I'm going to say if my item dot formatted address is present, and go ahead and then show the text with the item dot formatted address. Okay, having the class name over here, this is basically going to say text XL, or we can keep it small, text small, text gray of 400, as well as a margin top of 1. Okay, let's define that function, that is on card scroll, and then let's try to save the file to exactly look how exactly our design is looking at this point of time. I'm going to say const on card scroll is going to take in the event that is going to be your native synthetic event, and here I'm going to say native scroll event. Let's try to save the file, and boom, there you go. Just like that, it's looking pretty clean, and we have all of the places. For now we have only 2 places. I think we need to do some more styling because it is not exactly coming onto the map. That is, it's not exactly spaced out. That's what I meant. Let's actually give some style to this one. I'm going to say class name absolute positioning bottom of 6. Okay, that's looking fine, but the BG is gone. Yeah, we need to give it for the inner view. That's this one. I'm going to say class name. Along with the style, I'm going to say BG of white. Furthermore, rounded is going to be 2XL. Then I'm going to say shadow LG. Shadow LG. And then we're going to give it a padding of 4, some internal spacing. Currently, it is not spaced out. Reload once. And there you go. Just like that, it's looking pretty clean. We have both of the places that we have added. Now let's try to define the function that is on scroll card, or on cart scroll, we need to actually move the marker to that particular place to whichever cart the user scrolls to, right? So here initially I'm gonna first of all check the index. I'm gonna say const index is gonna be equals to, I'm gonna make use of the math dot round method. I'm gonna say e dot native event dot content offset dot x divided by your card width plus your spacing. Okay, so here I'm gonna say if my index is not equals to your selected index, okay, I think there is an issue with the condition over here. So e dot native event dot content offset dot x divided by card width plus spacing. Okay, yeah, I'll just remove that semicolon over here. So I'm going to say if my index is not equals to selected index and places of index. If that is present, then just say set selected index to be of index. So I'm going to say set selected index to be of index, and I'm going to say move to region because we need to move to that particular place. I'm going to say move to region of places of index. Let's try to define that function move to region right at the top over here. I'm going to say const move to region is going to be equals to, it's going to take in a place of type place, and over here I'm going to say const region is going to be equals to region. So this region is gonna come from React Native maps. So I'm gonna say marker comma your region. Okay, here let's continue writing the function. So it's basically gonna be just equals to, we're gonna get in the latitude as well as the longitude based on the place that is selected. So latitude place dot geometry dot location dot your latitude, furthermore your longitude, that's going to be equals to place dot geometry dot location dot your longitude, furthermore your latitude delta is going to be 0.05 and your longitude delta is going to be equals to 0.05. Okay, so let's add in the colon over here, not equals to, so it takes that value from the React Native maps. Next step is just try to implement the animate to region method that is going to be present for the maps and then pass in this particular region. Okay, so here I'm going to say map ref dot current dot your animate to region. This in turn is going to take in your region and pass in the value 350. Let's format once and then let's try to save the file. Okay, so this in turn is going to take in your duration as well as the region. That's what we've passed over here, right? Let's try to scroll the card, and there you go, just like that, boom, it worked absolutely fine. Once when we scroll from the first card to second card, it took all of these details of the second place and it worked absolutely fine with the help of the animate to region method. Now again come back over here, it should go to this place. Okay, so this step is done. So we have completed designing your map screen. You can actually add in more places and then you can try to look into how exactly your map screen is gonna look like. So this step is done. So we have two more parts remaining, that's the itinerary as well as your expense tab. So let's actually try to implement the itinerary part, that is the endpoint, to add a place to a specific itinerary. Let's do that. Probably this is going to be your last endpoint over here. I'm going to say server.js. Yeah, let's do it over here. I'm going to say app dot post of itinerary, or we can implement it like /API / your trips / your trip ID / your /your itinerary and here it's gonna have in your async function with the request and the response. Okay, here let's have in the try and then catch block. So try and catch of error. Here let's try to log the error adding itinerary with that particular error message. Okay, let's also send the response to, I'm going to say a response.status of 500.json with error being failed to add activity to itinerary. So within the try block, let's try to initialize two things. Again, it's going to remain similar to the way we implemented the adding to place. We need access to trip ID, place ID, the data, and all these things. So I'm going to say const place ID is going to be equals to request dot params. I'm going to say const, not place ID, is going to be trip ID. Here I'm going to say const place ID comma your date comma place data is going to be equals to request dot body. Let's initialize your API key. So const API key is going to be equals to ABC. Here I'm going to say if not of date present, we cannot implement the endpoint. Then I'm going to say return result dot status of 400 dot JSON with error being date is required. Okay, here I'm going to say if not of place ID and not of place data. In this case, again, we cannot implement it. I'm going to say return result dot status of 400. Let's format once dot JSON with a error being either place ID or place data is required. Okay, this step is done. So now if at all the values are present, let's try to get in the trip to which we need to push in the itinerary for that specific date. I'm going to say const trip is going to be equals to await trip dot find by ID method and pass in the trip ID to this. Okay, here I'm going to say if at all no trip is found, then say return result dot status of 400 dot JSON with a error being trip is not found. Okay, that's pretty much it. Now let's try to initialize your activity data. Here I'm going to say let activity data. Here I'm going to say if my place data is present, then your activity data is going to be equals to your date. Let's write that properly, date. Then your name is going to be equals to your place data dot name or a unknown place. I'm going to say phone number place data dot phone number or empty string. Next one is for your website. It's going to be your place data dot your website. Okay, the next step is for your opening hours. I'm going to say opening hours is going to be equals to place data dot opening hours or a empty array. Next one, photos. Photos is going to be equals to place data dot photos or empty array. Next one is going to be for your reviews. I'm going to say reviews. That's going to be equals to place data dot reviews or empty array. Next one is going to be for the types. So place data dot types or empty array. I'm going to add in the remaining ones. You can take a look at it. That is a formatted address, brief description, as well as the geometry in this particular format. Okay, if the place data is not present, then we're gonna get it from the Google APIs. Okay, so write down your else condition over here. That is over here. I'm gonna have in my URL pasted over here. It's gonna be the similar URL we're gonna use, so you can copy down from the previous endpoints. Here I'm gonna say const response is going to be equals to await axios dot get of URL. Okay, and we're going to take in two things, status as well as the result, that is details, is going to be equals to response dot data. So from here it's essentially the same step that we had written while adding a place to the list. I'm going to say if my status is not equals to okay, okay, or not of details, then in this case I'm going to say return result dot status of 400 dot JSON with a error being Google Places API error. Okay, that's it. Now let's try to initialize your activity data. This is essentially going to remain the exact same thing as the information that we had written while writing the endpoint for adding a place to the list. I'm just going to get in the activity data for this particular one. So just try to add in these details. Okay, just try to add the date at the top. Apart from that, remaining everything is going to remain as is. You can basically take it from the previous endpoint. You can take a look at it as well as the link to. Okay, that's it. Now the next step is, first of all, we're going to check if at all the existing itinerary is there or not. So here I'm going to say const existing itinerary is going to be equals to trip dot itinerary dot find method for every item. It's going to be equals to item dot date should be equals to date. Okay, here I'm going to say let updated trip, and I'm going to say if my existing itinerary is present. If that's true, then your update trip is going to be equals to, just use the find by id and update method. So I'm going to say updated trip is going to be equals to await trip dot find by id and update this method. This in turn is gonna have in your trip id. Okay, and here we're gonna make use of the $push. We are basically gonna push it into the itinerary. I'm going to say itinerary dot dollar access the element, and then we're going to go into the activities array, and we're going to add in the activity data. And here we're going to have in your array filters. It's basically going to have in the element dot date. That's going to be date, and I'm going to say new is going to be equals to true. Okay, just make the change. Let's try to format once, and let's try to save. Else, if that's not present, I'm going to say else we're going to say updated trip is going to be equals to await trip dot find by id and update. Again, update your trip id. Here I'm going to say $push. We're going to push it into the itinerary array. Having the date, and into the activities array, we're going to push in the activity data. And here I'm going to say new is going to be equals to true. Let's try to format once. That's it. So this step is done. Let's try to send the response. I'm going to say result dot status of 200 dot json with a message being activity added to itinerary successfully, and passing the trip that's going to be equals to your updated trip. That's it. Let's try to format once and let's try to save the file. Yeah, probably we have implemented all of the required endpoints for this project. We just need to implement it in the front end part. Let's come back to your plan trip screen, and here we're going to start writing the conditions for the itinerary. So where is that condition for overview? So just below this, we're going to write a new condition stating that if at all your selected tab is going to be equals to itinerary, start showing the design for that. So here I'm going to say if my selected tab is going to be equals to itinerary, and I'm going to render a function that is known as render itinerary tab. Okay, so let's define the function that is render itinerary tab at the top of the page. Let's say over here maybe. So const render itinerary tab. It's going to be equals to a normal arrow function. I'm going to say const dates is going to be equals to generate trip dates. So now let's try to implement the function that is generate trip dates over here. I'm going to say const generate trip dates is going to be equals to normal function. Here I'm going to say const start is going to be equals to day.js. Use that, and it's going to be equals to your trip dot access the start date, or it's going to be equals to new date. Similarly for end, I'm going to say const end is going to be equals to day.js of your trip dot end date, or your new date. Okay, this is done. Let's initialize the days. Const days is going to be equals to an empty array. Here I'm going to say for let d equals to start. I'm going to say d dot is before your end, or d dot is same as end. Even this can be okay. I'm going to say d is going to be equals to d dot add. I'm going to say add 1 with respect to the day, and just use the days array and push the day. So days dot push of the day, not day, basically d, that is your variable, whatever value it is. Then I'm going to say return days dot apply the map functionality for every day. Over here I'm going to say label, that's going to be equals to d dot format of this particular value, ddd, and then d by m, and your value is going to be equals to d dot format into this format, that is year, month as well as a day. That's it. There is no semicolon. It's going to be a comma. That's it. Let's continue designing the render tab. So let's initialize your scroll view over here. I'm going to say return scroll view. Within the scroll view, I'm going to have a touchable opacity. I'm going to say touchable opacity. Within that, we're going to have a view which is going to have a text which says use AI to create itinerary. Save. So yeah, we are able to see that design onto the screen. For the scroll view, let's provide in the class name px of 4 and then padding top of 4. We're gonna have bg of white. Okay, this step is done. Let's provide in the class name for the touchable opacity. So class name bg blue of 500 rounded LG, margin bottom of 4, item center. For the view, I'm going to give in the styling class name. Actually, we're also going to have one more icon, that is your material icons. I'm going to say material icons. Your name for the icon, it's going to be auto awesome. We also need to provide in the size, that's going to be equals to 20. Color, that's going to be equals to FFF. Let's continue giving the design for the view. It's going to have a flex of row. Apart from that, it's going to have a items of center. As you can see, just like that, it's looking pretty clean. Let's provide in some padding over here, padding of 2 or 3 and a gap of 2. A gap like this. Okay, for the text, let's pass on the style. So class name, this is going to be equals to text of white, font of medium, ML of 2. Okay, that's looking clean. This step is done. Now let's try to render the dates. Below touchable opacity, taking a view, and here having a scroll view. And I'm gonna map over the dates. I'm gonna say dates dot apply the map function for every date as well as your index. Try to show a touchable opacity over here. Within this, just having a text. This is gonna having the date dot label. As you can see, we're able to show that onto the screen. For the view, let's provide in the class name flex of row, margin bottom of 4. Then for the scroll view, I'm going to say horizontal. Then content container style is going to be equals to, not this. We're going to say show horizontal scroll indicator set it to be false. So show horizontal scroll indicator and then false. Okay. Touchable opacity, I'm going to say key is going to be equals to your index. Furthermore, class name selected date equals to the date dot value. It's going to be bg blue of 500, else it's going to be bg gray of 100. Okay, similarly we're going to have the similar styling over here. Let's copy that down and then make the change. So class name is going to be font semi bold. So I'm going to say font semi bold and then text of SM, and if my selected date is going to be equals to date dot value, text is going to be white color. So I'm going to say text white and then text gray of 700 over here. So text gray of 700. Let's try to save the file. As you can see, that's looking good. For the reachable opacity, let's give the on press. I'm going to say on press, taking a function, and here I'm going to say set selected date to be of your date dot value. As you can see, that's looking pretty neat. Yeah, this step is done. So now let's try to show the design for all of the dates. Just below your view, I'm going to say dates dot map for every date as well as your index over here. Let's try to get in the itinerary for date. I'm going to say const itinerary for date is going to be equals to your trip dot itinerary or empty array, apply the find method. So for every item, I'm going to say if my item dot date is equals to date dot value, then get in that particular information that would be stored inside of itinerary for date. Okay, let's try to get in the activities. I'm going to say const activities is activities. Let's write that correctly. It's going to be equals to your itinerary for date dot activities. Or empty array. Let's try to return it over here. And yeah, let's start designing this. It's going to have basically a view. This view in turn is going to have one more view within, which in turn is going to have a text, which is going to show your date dot label. Save. Cannot read property activities of undefined. Okay, let's give that a try. Yeah, so just make sure to add in the correct spelling. So date dot label. Apart from that, we're going to have a text over here which says, add subheading. Okay, below this view, we're going to have another view. This in turn is going to have two pieces of texts, in fact 3. I'm going to paste in all of the 3 texts. It's going to say autofill day plus optimize root as well as pro. Let's try to save. As you can see, that's looking nice. Let's start off styling the topmost view. Class name, keys index, and I'm going to say margin bottom of 8. For this, let's provide in the class name flex of row and then items center, margin bottom of 2. That's looking good. So for this text, let's pass on the class name. So class name text of 2 XL, font of extra bold. As you can see, that's looking good. Margin right of 2. Okay, that's nice. Here I'm going to have in my class name that is going to be equals to text gray of 400. So text gray 400, font of medium. Yeah, that's looking nice. So let's format once and let's pass on the design for this particular view. It's going to come in a row fashion. So class name, this in turn is going to say flex of row. So flex row, items center, gap of 2, margin bottom of 2. As you can see, just like that design is looking pretty clean. So now let's try to show all of the cards over here. I'm going to say if my activities dot length is greater than 0 question mark. In this case, I'm going to map over the activities. I'm going to say activities. Now this one, activities dot map for every place as well as number. I'm going to say render place card of your place as well as your IDX, as well as your true. This design is already there. Render place card for your overview tab is going to remain essentially the same. Here I'm going to say text, no activities added for this date. Okay, let's pass on the class name for this. Essentially it should go into the else condition because there are no activities into the itinerary. I'm going to say text small, text gray of 500, and then a margin bottom of 3. Save. There you go, no activities added for each of the dates. It is correctly showing fine. The next step is include your touchable opacity to add in a place. So below this design, I'm going to say touchable opacity, take in your icons. Here we're going to have a name that is going to be equals to location outline, size is going to be equals to 18, color 777. Okay, here I'm going to say text, which is going to say add a place. So initially class name over here. So class name is going to be ml of 2, text gray of 500. Here I'm going to say add a place. Let's pass on the class name for this. It's basically going to have flex of row, items center, and then bg gray of 100, rounded lg, padding x of 4, padding y of 3, as well as the margin bottom of 3. Let's try to format once. Save. And boom, just like that, our design is looking pretty clean. So this is your itinerary tab. This is complete. Okay, let's try to initialize on press over here. I'm going to say on press, take in a function over here, and I'm going to say set the selected date to be of your date dot value. Apart from that, I'm going to say set model mode to be of place, and I'm going to say set model visible to be of true. Okay, wrong spelling of this. So now next we need to finish designing the model. So if you remember over here in the overview tab, once you press on the add a place, we were seeing this one. And similarly in the itinerary, once you press on add a place, see it's currently empty. We need to write the condition and we need to set this up. So in place of null, let's write the second condition. So here I'm going to say if your model mode is equals to place and your selected tab is going to be equals to itinerary, just like this. Then I'm going to add in a question mark, else again it's going to be null over here. We're going to design furthermore once we complete this. Here initialize a fragment. So again this is going to have your text which says select a date to add for that particular place. Okay, here I'm going to say selected date. If it's present, then here it's going to be add place to, I'm going to make use of date.js. We need to show in all of these dates. Okay, so based on whatever date the user chooses, the place is going to go into that particular day. So date.js of selected date dot apply the format method, and this is going to be the format value, else it is going to be search for a place. Let's try to format once and then let's try to save, and boom, there you go, add place to Tuesday 29/7. So yeah, this step is done. So now the next step is, so you can basically add on this as well. So this would say add place to 37. It's that simple. Okay, Next, let's initialize your Google Places autocomplete below your text. Here I'm going to say Google Places autocomplete. Here again, it's going to have few options. Placeholder, that is going to be equals to search for a place. Okay. Apart from that, I'm going to say fetch details is going to be equals to true. And here I'm going to say enabled powered by container is going to be false. Again, on press, I think this is going to remain exactly same as the previous condition. So I'm just going to enter that along with the styles. So I'm just going to add in my Google Places autocomplete over here. Let's minimize this. Okay, so as you can see, we do have the Google Places autocomplete with these options. This is pretty much similar itself. You can take a look at it. And even the place details is going to remain similar. So if selected date is present, you're going to add the place to itinerary. So you're going to say handle add place to itinerary, else just set the error over here. Okay, that's pretty much it. These are the same styles that we're using again. So now let's try to implement the function that is handle add place to itinerary over here at the top. So here I'm going to say const handle add place to itinerary is going to be equals to async function. This in turn is going to take in a place of type any and date as well of type string. So here I'm going to have in my try catch block. So catch of error. Okay, here let's try to say console.error error adding place to itinerary with that particular error, and I'm going to set the error to be of error dot your response dot data dot error or failed to add place to your itinerary. That's it. Here let's try to initialize some conditions. If not trip dot underscore id or not of date, here I'm just going to say set error to be of trip id or date missing. So I think get token is already implemented in the previous one, so just try to import that. So I'm going to say const payload is going to be equals to place dot id or place dot place underscore id. Okay, if this is there, then it's going to be equals to, let's access the place id, place dot id or place dot place underscore id comma date, else it is just going to be equals to your place data that's going to contain your place as well as a date. Let's format once. So this is your payload that we're going to pass to the endpoint. Here I'm going to say await axios dot post method. Here initially we're going to have an http localhost and then 3000 / API / your trips. It's going to be equals to your trip.id. So trip dot underscore id. Okay, and it's going to be equals to / itinerary. Let's pass in the payload for this, just like this, and your headers. I'm going to say authorization. It's going to be equals to bearer token. Okay, yeah, apart from that, I'm just going to say await fetch trip. Fetch trips, then set model visible to be of false, close the model, set selected date to be of null. let's try to save the file. So yes, let's try to give this a try. I'm just gonna open up, let's say, this model. Okay, so there you go. I think we forgot to do the styling part. We need to do that. Let's add in all of the styles for this one. So starting off from the text, I'm going to say class name. This in turn is going to say text of LG, font semi-bold, margin top of 2, margin bottom of 2 as well. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for the styling part. So below this, we're going to have the text as well. Below your Google Places autocomplete, which is going to say select date. Yeah, or you can add it from here as well, or let's try to implement it in the later point. I'm just going to save the file over here, and below this we're going to show all of the places to visit as well, because they can directly add in that places also into the itinerary for that specific date. So here I'm going to say trip dot your places to visit or empty array dot apply the map method if it's, or check the length if it's greater than 0, and let's initialize a view over here. This view in turn is going to have a text which says previously added places. So I'm going to say previously added places, right? So yeah, here let's try to initialize a scroll view. Within that I'm going to say trip dot places to visit dot map for every place and your index. Let's try to render a touchable opacity for this. Here we're going to show in basically the image as well as a view. I'm going to have my image being shown, add in the source URI, that is going to be place dot your photos. So place dot photos of 0 or a placeholder image, you can add that fallback. And below this we're going to have a view which is going to contain 2 pieces of texts. Here it's going to be your place dot name. So I'm going to say place dot name. Okay, here we're going to have one more text that's going to be equals to place dot formatted address, place dot formatted address, right? Here let's have in the class name. It's going to be text small, font medium, save. There you go. We are able to see all of the previously added places into the places to visit list. For the image, let's pass on class name, width of 12, height of 12, and apart from that I'm going to say rounded is going to be medium, margin right of 2, and boom, just like that. It's looking pretty clean. For the scroll view, let's pass on the styling, class name flex of 1. Okay, for this particular view I'm going to say class name flex 1 empty of 2. For this particular text, class name is going to be equals to text of small, font semi-bold, margin bottom of 1. Okay, that's looking clean. So for the touchable opacity, let's provide in the style. Here I'm going to say class name, so flex of row, and then items center. Apart from that, some internal spacing, padding of 2, border bottom, and then border gray of 200. Okay, so as you can see, this is looking clean. This step is done. Okay, so here for the touchable opacity, if at all the selected date is present, it's going to go into that particular date. So let's try to initialize this design over here. Okay, so initially I'm gonna try to map over the generated dates. Let's initialize a scroll view. Within this I'm going to say generate trip dates dot map for every date and the index. I'm going to say date comma index over here. Let's try to render a touchable opacity Within the touchable opacity, we're going to have a text basically that's going to show your date, right? So I'm just going to add in the text over here. Save. As you can see, we have all of the dates being shown. Let's try to format once and let's try to save. Yeah, so you can basically try to remove your scroll view. That's not required as of now. For this, let's pass on the class name. That is going to be equals to text of SM, font of semi bold, margin top of 2 and then margin bottom of 1. Save. Looking fine. For the touchable opacity, let's pass on the class name over here. So class name, this is essentially going to have initially backticks, padding x of 3, padding y of 1, 1.5, margin right of 2. I want to say rounded is going to be full. And then border here, take in the dollar, add in the condition. If your selected date is equals to date.value, then it's going to be equals to bg blue of 500. And it's also going to have border blue of 500, border blue 500. Else it is going to be bg white and border gray of 300. So save. There you go. Just like that, it's looking fine. Let's format once. You can actually add in a view and you can actually try to render it inside of a row. Even that can be done. Copy this and then paste it over here. I'm just going to say class name. I'm going to say flex of row, items center, a gap of 3 or 2. And boom, just like that, it's looking pretty clean. So for the touchable opacity, let's try to initialize the on press. Okay, so I don't think this one. Yeah, even for this it's there. We need to set the date. I'm going to say on press, set selected date to be of the date.value. I'm going to say set selected date to be of date.value. Save. So it should essentially change. Add place to these dates over here. Okay, this part is done. So now next is we need to initialize on press on these places such that automatically it adds it into the list. So yeah, I think I forgot to style this one, so it's kind of not looking good. It's gonna have class name, text of XS, text gray of 500. Okay, that's looking nice. Here for the touchable opacity, I'm gonna say on press, take in a function, and first of all check the condition. If selected date is present, if it is selected, then directly say call the function handle add place to itinerary of two things, your place and your selected date. Else I'm just going to say set the error to be of please add or please select a date to add this place. Okay, that's pretty much it. Let's try to format once and let's try to save the file. So here I'm just going to give this a try. So let's say for Tuesday over here, I am going to add in this place, that is Coorg Marriott Resorts and Spa. And boom, just like that, it worked absolutely fine. It got added into this particular date. Okay, that is Tuesday 29/7. And we're able to see that place being added. So this is working absolutely fine. So now the next and final step is you need to implement it with the AI feature. That is, once you press on this, automatically it should generate all of the popular places or all of the suggested places for this particular trip, and the user can add it into the itinerary. So you can also try to search and add, even that should work properly fine. Okay, let's start designing the model over here. At the bottommost part, I think one final condition is present, that is if at all your model mode is going to be equals to AI. Let's come back over here. Yeah, so we had written the condition for if at all your model mode is going to be equals to place and an itinerary. So let's try to minimize that just like this. Okay, so wherever null is there, write in your second condition, that is if your model mode is going to be equals to AI. That's the condition for now. enter in a question mark, else for now we're gonna show it null. Here let's try to render a fragment. Here I'm gonna say text. This is gonna say again some value. I'm gonna say if my selected date is present question mark, make use of backticks. Here it's gonna say add AI suggested place to $day.js of your selected date dot format it into this particular value ddd d by m. Okay, and yeah, apart from that, in the else condition it's going to say select a date for AI suggested places. That's it. Here I'm going to say select a date for AI suggested places. So format once. Okay, let's try to save the file. So next step is again we're going to have a select date over here, text. This is going to say select date. Below this we're going to have a scroll view, or we can skip the scroll view. Again we're going to have something similar to the previous condition, that is essentially this kind of design. Copy that down, minimize it, and let's write it down in the AI condition. Yeah, just below this add this one over here. So save. This part is done. So now let's actually try to see how exactly your model is looking. So where it says your use AI to create itinerary, we need to give in a on press for that. Okay, so let's try to implement that function first, and then let's try to open up the model. So let's search for, okay, let's come back to the previous state. Save. I'm going to search for render itinerary tab. Here I'm going to say on press. I'm just going to call the function that is fetch AI places, and I'm going to define it over here. So fetch AI places. Here let's try to define that. I'm going to say const fetch AI places is going to be equals to a async method. Okay, here I'm going to say set AI loading. So we need to initialize the state for that. I'm going to say const set AI loading. Let's write that properly. Comma set AI loading is going to be equals to use state initially false. Here it's going to become true. So here I'm going to say set AI loading to be of true, and then set error to be of null. Okay, apart from this, let's access your try catch block. So try catch of error. Let's try to implement the error block. I'm going to say console.log error fetching AI places with that particular error message. Okay, then I'm going to say set your error to be of failed to fetch your AI recommendations. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's try to save. Let's also have in the state for AI places. I'm going to say const AI places comma set AI places is going to be equals to use state and initially an empty array over here. Okay, all right, so within your try block, let's try to implement that. Okay, so before that, I'm going to paste in at the later point over here. If all it fails, we're going to show some fallback details. So here within the try block, let's try to initialize the response. I'm going to say const response is going to be equals to await I'm going to say axios dot post method. So this is going to be your URL, that is https api.openai.com/your v1/chat and then completions. Let's add in the model over here. We are going to use, that is GPT-4o. You're going to have in your messages array containing your role. So here I'm going to say role is going to be of the system. We need to have in the content for the system. So we're going to say you are a travel assistant for, let's say, $trip name or a popular destination, or we can skip that. Trip name is better. So here we're going to say return a JSON array. I'm just going to get in the content for this. So you can add in your messages array just like this. So we are going to say return a JSON array of 5 objects, each representing a top place to visit. Each object must have exactly these fields, that is name, description, and all the other details that we want to add. Okay, so we're just trying to prompt the agent so that it gives the correct result. So this is the role of the user. So content is going to be list top 5 places to visit in trip name. So yeah, that's it. So we need to initialize your headers for this. So I'm going to say headers. This in turn is going to take in your authorization. I'm going to say bearer and token. You need to add in your token over here. So to get the token, head over to api.openai.com. Make sure that you have few credits left inside of your billing. Otherwise, just top up your credit. Let's say for $5 even that would work. Okay. And just try to go into the API key section. Press on create an API key by choosing a project and copy down that API key, right? And it is only be gonna seen once. So that's the reason. Just copy that down and then enter it over here in place of token. Apart from that, I'm going to say content type is going to be application/JSON. Okay, that's it. So here, let's add in a comma. Here I'm going to say let your content is going to be equals to your response dot data dot choices of 0 dot access the message dot content dot trim. I'm going to say content is going to be equals to content dot your replace method with this particular string formulation that I'm going to add over here. That is basically an expression, and also add in the JSON match with respect to the content. So here I'm going to say if at all no JSON match is found, then that means it is not returned as a JSON formatted array. So we're just going to throw an error. I'm going to say throw new error saying no valid JSON array found. And if at all we have the content, just try to access the first one. I'm going to say content is going to be equals to JSON match of 0. Okay, and let's try to initialize the places. I'm going to say let places try catch over here. Within the try block, let's try to parse the content. I'm going to say places is going to be equals to JSON dot parse of your content. And within the try block, within the catch block, I'm going to say console.log error parsing the content with that particular error message. That's it. We're going to first of all check if at all it is an array of places, and if at all the places.length is greater than 0 or not. Here I'm going to say if not of array dot is array of your places, or if my places dot length is equals to 0, then in this case there are no results present. Okay, so for that I'm going to say throw new error. Here I'm going to say AI response missing required fields. That is your name, description, as well as the address. So yeah, that's it. So now the next step is let's try to initialize a place with the details over here. I'm going to say const place with details. Is going to be equals to await. I'm going to say promise.all. Here I'm going to say places.map. So it's going to have an async function. So for every place, here I'm just going to return a try catch block. So try catch of error. Here I'm just going to say console.log error with that particular error, or you can give a more better message saying failed to fetch details for place.name. Okay, and you can show the error dot message over here. Else within the try block, I'm going to add in the code for this one. So initially we're going to find out the place URL that's going to be equals to this particular URL. It's going to take in basically this URL along with the place name as well as the place address, and input type is going to be equals to text query, and we need to pass in the Google API key over here. So once we have the URL link, we're going to make use of the axios.get method and then pass in the find place URL. So from that you're going to get in your place ID, and this is going to remain as is, that is the details URL. Whatever we are using previously, it's going to remain as is. So once we get in the place ID, we're going to first of all check if at all place ID is not valid, then just try to throw the error with saying there is no place ID present. And let's initialize the details URL. So here we're going to add in all of these details, that is whatever details we want, and we need to pass in the API key. And once we get that, again make use of the axios.get, and we're going to obtain that result, and this is essentially going to remain same itself, that is whatever we're using from the previous point. So once that is done, we need to set the data. So at the bottommost part over here, we're going to say set your AI places to be of places with details. Okay, and I'm going to say set model mode to be of AI, so that the model opens up, and I'm going to say set model visible to be of true. So let's try to save the file, and let's actually check out if we have completed designing the model that is for the AI part. Let's try to add in the style for this. So I'm going to say class name, it's going to be equals to text of small, and then font of semi bold, margin top of 2 as well as a margin bottom of 1. Yeah, so we have given already the styles for this part is done. So we need to initialize the design for if at all the AI places is present over here. That is going to happen right below your braces over here. I'm going to say AI places dot length if it's greater than 0, and let's try to initialize a view, and within this view we're going to have a text which says AI suggested places. We're going to have a class name over here. So class name is going to be equals to text sm, font semi bold, margin bottom of 1. Let's format. Let's initialize a scroll view within the scroll view, I'm going to say AI places dot map for every place as well as your index. I'm going to render a touchable opacity over here. So touchable opacity. Okay, within this we're going to have again similar design. Whatever we gave to the itinerary, it's going to remain essentially the same. Just try to add in that is I think I had written that code somewhere over here. Yeah, this is the one. Just add in this touchable opacity. Minimize this first. And we're going to add it over here. Let's make the changes if any. So yeah, URI is going to be equals to place.photos of 0. And your place.name is going to remain as is. And even your place.format address is going to remain as is. And the style is going to remain as is. Save. So for your on press, if selected date is present, again handle place add to itinerary to your place as well as selected date, else show this particular error. Yeah, so apart from that, everything is going to remain as is. So now the next step is we need to implement the loading feature over here for the itinerary tab. So once the user presses on use AI to create itinerary, we need to show that something is loading, and once everything is done, we need to show up the model as well. So let's go to the point where we have render itinerary. And for this, let's try to implement the functionality. So it's going to be disabled if your AI is loading. So I'm going to say AI loading. Furthermore, within the view, I'm going to say if AI is loading question mark, it's going to be an activity indicator. Here I'm going to say activity indicator. Import that from React Native. Okay, your size is going to remain small, so I'm going to say size small. Apart from that, your color, that is going to be equals to FFF. And here I'm going to say material icons, name is going to be auto awesome. I mean, it's already there over here. Copy that down. And within the text, again, write in the condition if your AI is loading, then it's going to have a question mark stating fetching AI suggestions. So fetching AI suggestions, else it's going to be use AI to create itinerary. Save. Let's give this a try. So I'm going to press on use AI to create itinerary, and I need to enter my API key in my function. Okay. Alright, so I've just added my API key over here. So make sure you add in yours, and then let's try to press on use AI to create itinerary. And there you go, fetching AI suggestions. Let's wait for it. And boom, just like that, it's working absolutely fine, but the design is completely messed up. So we need to, fix that up. So as you can see, select date and then AI suggested places. It is going to give all of these places, which you can directly choose and then add. Let's actually give this a try if it is working. I'm going to press on Wednesday, and I'm going to add in, let's say, Abbey Waterfalls. And boom, just like that, it's working absolutely fine. Once you press on that, it's going to show more details as well. Okay, so we need to fix that design issue. For some reason, it is coming in a flex of row. Probably because of, I think my bad. They should come below this, if I'm not wrong. Let's give this one more try. I'm going to press on use AI to create itinerary. And boom, there you go. Just like that, it is given all of the AI suggested places, and this time the design is also looking pretty decent. So you can, check out the dates. Let's say I'm going to choose 31st over here, and I'm going to add in Raja Seed Garden. Okay, just like that, for the 31st, this is added. Okay. And once you press on that, more details regarding that particular place is going to be shown. Okay, that's it. So yeah, that's pretty much it about your itinerary tab as well as the AI layer to it. So this part is done. So now the one final thing remaining is your expense tab. Let's get started with designing your expense tab. So for that, we need to add in a condition that is just below this one, or just below your itinerary condition. So here I'm going to say if my selected tab is going to be equals to let's say $, then in this case we are in the expense tab. I'm just going to say and render expense tab. Okay, so let's try to define this function, that is render expense tab at the top over here. I'm going to say const render expense tab is going to be equals to a normal arrow function. Okay, initially I'm going to have in my total, I'm going to say const total is going to be equals to expenses. So we need to initialize the state for expenses. Let's go do that. Let's say at the top of the screen, yeah, somewhere over here I'm going to say const expenses comma set expenses is going to be equals to use state, initially an empty array. Okay, and I'm going to say const editing expenses comma set editing expenses is going to be equals to use state. This also initially let's say null. Okay, and we also need to have in the expense form, so I'm going to say const expense form comma set expense form is going to be equals to use state, and over here I'm going to say description is going to be an empty string, category is going to be an empty string, amount empty string, paid by, you can add in your name. Okay, so essentially this is going to be actually local to the app. We're not going to do any endpoint as of now. If you want to do that, you can try it out. Okay, you can try to implement the endpoint on your own, but we're gonna do the full functionality for expenses for a particular trip. Yeah, so I think these are the required states for implementing the expense parts. So let me have in my categories. Yeah, categories is already there. So apart from that, I'm going to have in my split options, even this is also there. The next step is let's try to show and design your render expense tab. So here I'm going to calculate my total, that's going to be equals to expenses dot reduce method for every sum as well as expense. It's going to be equals to sum plus your expense dot price or expense dot amount, okay, or 0. Let's pass in the initial value to be 0. Let's format once over here. Okay, this is done. Let's try to return over here. I'm going to say scroll view. Having a view within this view in turn is going to have a text, which in turn is going to say budget. Save. Let's come back to 4th tab, and there you go. We're able to see that design onto the screen. Below that, I'm going to have one more text which says track your expenses for this trip. So track your expenses for this trip. Save. Let's pass on class name for the scroll view. So class name, this in turn is going to have padding x of 4, padding top of 4, bg of white. Okay, this view is going to say class name, margin bottom of 6. Okay, save. Let's pass on the styles for both of these texts. Initially it's going to have a text of 2XL. So text 2XL, font is going to be extra bold. Class name over here, text small, text gray of 500, margin bottom of 4. Okay, that's looking nice. So below this particular text, we're going to show the total. That's going to have a view. Within that, again another text. I'm going to say total colon, I'm just going to say total dot to fixed to be of 2. Okay, You can add in rupees over here. Let's pass on the class name for this. This in turn is going to have, text of LG, then font of semi bold. For this view, I'm going to pass in your class name, that is going to be equals to BG gray of, let's say, 100, and some padding of 4. Rounded is going to be large, and I'm going to say margin bottom of 4. As you can see, that's looking better. So below that, we're going to have a button to add a new expense. Below this particular view, I'm going to say touchable opacity. This in turn is going to have a text which is going to say add new expense. So for this particular touchable opacity, we're going to have your class name, that is going to say, BG blue of 500, padding of 3, rounded LG, and I'm going to say items center. Okay, as you can see, that is looking pretty good. So class name for this, give it a color of white, so text white, and then font of medium. That's looking fine. So for we do have the expenses, we're gonna map over all of the expenses over here. Okay, let's render the design for that later. So once you press on add expense, we need to open up the model. So we're gonna define the final model mode, that is for the expense. I'm gonna say on press, take in a function, and over here I'm gonna say set the model mode to be of expense and set model visible to be of true. So set model visible to be of true, just like this. Let's format once. Let's try to save the file. So let's write in the final condition for your model, that is in the else condition where we had written null initially. Over there, we're going to write the condition for if at all your model is going to be equals to expense. So automatically just start writing the code, because it would automatically signify the else condition. So here having a fragment, or you can try to return a parenthesis. Okay, here I'm going to have in a text which is going to say if my model mode is equals to edit expense, then it's going to be edit expense, else it's going to be add new expense, because once we add the expense, we also have the right to edit the expense as well. So we're gonna implement that too. So that's the reason we're gonna write the condition in this way. So let's pass on the class name. So this is gonna have a text of LG, and font of semi bold, margin bottom of 4. Save. Let's press on that, and there you go, we're able to see that correctly being shown. Below text, let's have in your scroll view, add that, and this in turn is going to have a text which is going to say description. So for the description, let's pass on the class name. This in turn is going to say text of small, so text SM, font medium, margin bottom of 2. Right, that's looking fine. For the scroll view, there is no styling. Then below this, you're going to have your text input. I'm going to say text input, import that from React Native. Value is going to be equals to your expense form dot description. Remember, we are already set the state for this, so just try to use that over here. Then on change text, take in the text whatever you're going to use, and over here we're going to say set expense form to be of whatever is there initially in the expense form. Okay, and I'm going to add in my description, that is going to be text. Let's try to format once. Okay, so this is done. Next, we're going to have a placeholder that is going to be equals to enter your expense description. So enter expense description. Below that, your class name. This is going to say BG gray of 100, then some internal spacing, padding of 3, rounded LG, then margin bottom of 4. As you can see, that is looking fine. Below that, we're going to have for the category. let's say text, it is going to say category. So essentially, same kind of class name. Let's pass on that and add it over here. Save. That is done. Next over here, we do have the categories array listed at the top. That is the strings which we had initialized earlier. Use that, and here I'm going to say scroll view. I'm going to say categories dot map. So for every category as well as your index, I'm going to render a touchable opacity. Within this, I'm just going to show the text. Here I'm going to check my condition. Here I'm just going to add in my category. As you can see, all the categories are present. So let's pass on the class name for this. So class name, initially make use of backticks over here. Just like this. So initially padding x of 4, padding y of 2, then margin right of 2, and then rounded of LG, right? And here I'm going to write in one more condition stating that if my expense form dot category is equals to category, then it's going to have some different bg color. Okay, so question mark, here the colon is going to come. So if it is equals, then it's going to be bg blue 500. So bg blue 500, else it's going to be text gray, bg gray of 100. So here I'm going to say bg gray of 100. Save. So as you can see, by default everything is set to be 100. Let's try to initialize the on press on this. So I'm going to say on press. So this is going to take in a function, and over here I'm just going to set the expense form. So directly say set expense form to be of again whatever is there initially in the expense form. Include that and just try to add in your category. So comma category. That's it. Let's format once. And for the scroll view, we're going to make it as horizontal. I'm going to say horizontal and then show horizontal scroll indicator, set it to be false. Just like this. Okay. Apart from that, class name, it's going to be margin bottom of 4. And there you go. Just like that, is looking good. You can press on each of them. It is going to automatically change the color because we've given the on press. So yeah, that's it. So for the text, you can actually try to give it a color of white. Okay, probably I have given the wrong class name for this one. So this is going to be coming for the touchable opacity. Here it's going to have text SM and then font medium. Let's write that. That's the default styling. So text SM, font medium. Okay, and if my expense form dot category is equals to category, then it's going to be text white. So text white over here. Else is going to be text gray of 700. So here I'm going to say text gray of 700. So save, and boom, just like that, it's looking pretty clean. So this is done. The next step is for your amount. Let's try to render that right below your scroll view. Here I'm going to say text, it's going to say amount. Again, initial same styling for all of these headers. So copy that down and then add it over here. Below this, we're going to have one more text input. I'm going to say text input over here. So yeah, let's add in the required details for this. So value is going to be equals to your expense form dot amount, then on change text, take in the text over here and set the state. I'm going to say set expense form to be of whatever is there in the expense form, and then include your amount, that is going to be the text. So format once over here. So placeholder is going to be equals to enter amount. So enter amount, and I think class name is going to remain pretty much similar as the previous one. Copy that down. PG gray, padding of 3, rounded LG as well as MB of 4. So add that over here. Okay, as you can see, that's looking nice. So this is done. The next thing is going to be for paid by as well as the split option. So copy this text over here. Here I'm going to say paid by. Save. Let's format. Have in another text input. So this value is going to be equals to expense form dot paid by. On change text, set the expense form to be of expense form, paid by is going to be of that particular text. And here I'm going to say enter name. Class name is going to remain as is. Save. As you can see, by default the value is set over here in the state, so that's the reason it's taking that value. The next thing is going to be for your split option, so I'm just going to add in the code for that. So this essentially is going to be a scroll view right below the text input. So here just map over the split options and just try to show whatever are the split options. So I'm just going to scroll down a bit to see the styles. Format once. This is the upper scroll view and these are the design. Let's try to save the file. And there you go. These are two things, don't split and then everyone. This part is done. The final design is for save, change or add expense. Let's try to design that touchable opacity over here. I'm going to say touchable opacity. This in turn is going to have a text, which in turn is going to first of all check the condition if your model mode is going to be equals to edit expense question mark, then it's going to be save changes, else it is going to be add expense. All right, here I'm going to say class name for the touchable opacity bg blue of let's say 500. Furthermore, padding of 3, some internal spacing, rounded LG, items of center. Format and save. So there you go, that's looking pretty good. So for the text, I'm going to have in my class name over here. Here again, we're going to have in a conditional kind of design. So here have in your backtext, or yeah, we could just give it a text of white for now and font of medium. No need of adding a conditional styling. So save. Yeah, that's looking good. So now let's try to implement both the functions, that is handle edit expense as well as handle add expense. So it's going to come over here on press, take in a function or directly check the condition stating that if your model mode is equals to your edit expense, then it's going to be this function handle edit expense. So I'm going to say handle edit expense, else it is going to be handle add expense. So handle add expense, right? So let's try to define both of these functions, that is handle edit expense as well as handle add expense. So I'm just going to scroll to the top over here. I'm going to say const handle add expense is going to be equals to a normal function, normal arrow function. Here I'm going to check if not of expense form dot description or not of expense form dot your category or not of your expense form dot your amount, then directly set the error saying that we cannot implement it because all these details are required for creating an expense. I'm going to say please fill all expense fields and then directly try to return from the function. Okay, let's try to create a new expense. I'm going to say const new expense is going to be equals to id, that is date dot nav dot your toString. Okay, and furthermore just try to include your expense form. The price is going to be equals to parse float of expense form dot amount. Furthermore, your date, I'm going to make use of day.js again. So day.js dot format it into this particular format, that is year, month as well as day. This is done. So just let's try to set the expenses. Already we do have the state for this. So set expenses to be of whatever are the previous expenses, include that. So just try to spread the value just like this and then add in the newly created expense. So new expense, just like this. Okay, then set the expense form to be empty again. So here I'm going to say description empty, category empty, your amount is going to be empty, as well as your paid by is going to remain as is. Then next is going to be a split option. I'm going to say don't split. Okay, this is done. After this, just try to close the model. I'm going to say set model visible to be of false, and then set model mode to be of place. Okay, let's try to format once, and then let's try to save. Yeah, so let's leave that for now. So now next step is let's try to implement your next one, that is your handle edit expense. Okay, so let's write that over here. I'm going to say const handle edit expense. It's going to be equal to normal arrow function, and then let's write in the same condition over here. So if not of expense form dot description, or expense form dot category, or expense form dot amount, or not of editing expense. I think it's editing expenses. Let's check out the state name. Yeah, it is going to be editing expenses. So right, so now the next step is again try to just set the state. So I'm going to say set expenses to be of whatever is there in the previous. I'm going to map over it. I'm going to say previous dot map for every expense. I'm going to check if my expense dot id is equals to the editing expenses dot id. If it's true, then you're going to make the change. Okay, here I'm going to say include whatever is there in the expense, then have in your expense form, and your price is going to be equals to parse float of your expense form dot your amount. We just added a new interface, that is expense, because that was erroring out. Okay, so the same thing we're going to do that over here as well. So just try to add in these values over here, and just try to set the expense form of these values. Right, you can change this. Is going to be editing expenses dot id. So you can actually try to copy down your expense interface. I've just added it at the top over here. This is the one. It's going to contain the ID, description, category, amount, price, paid by, split options, as well as the date. So just try to initialize the state like this, because this is of the type expense, and that error should be gone. So this is done. So now let's try to add the expenses, and once it is added, we're going to show all of the expenses over here in the expenses tab, that is right below your touchable opacity. So below your view, not touchable opacity, I'm going to say expenses dot apply a map function, and for every expense comma your index, here we are going to have a view. Okay, so this view in turn is going to have another view, and this view in turn is going to have one more view, which in turn is going to have a text. Okay, here we're going to show the expense dot description. Save. And below that, we're going to show the expense dot category. So text over here, expense dot category, and below that the paid by value. So here I'm going to say text. It is going to say paid by expense dot paid by. Right, below that split value, I'm going to say split the type basically. So I'm going to say split over here. So here it's going to be expense dot your split option. This is done. Finally, below this view, we're going to have another view, which in turn is going to have a text. This is going to say dollar, and we're going to say expense dot price or expense dot amount or 0 dot to fixed of 2. So yeah, that's it. The next step is to show the date, that is when exactly it was added. So I'm just going to say day.js of your expense dot date, apply the format method. It is going to be this particular value. You can take a look at it. Okay, so below this particular view, we are going to have another view containing your pencil icon as well as the delete icon. I'm just going to add it over here. So this is basically going to set the editing expense to be of expense once you press on that. So for pencil icon it's going to edit, for delete icon it's going to delete the expense. So we need to define the functionality for deleting expense as well. So let's add that over here itself. I'm going to say const handle delete expense is going to be equals to set expenses of your previous. Just try to filter out the required one. I'm going to say previous dot filter for every expense. I'm going to say expense dot id is not equals to id. That's it. Let's try to save the file. So let's add in these values according to our interface that we have written. So here I'm going to say set editing expenses, because that's the name, I guess, of the expense. Let's try to save the file. Let's try to add a new one, and let's actually add in all of the designs for this. I'm just going to paste in the designs for each of them, starting off from your topmost view. Or let's try to add in the design over here, starting from the view. I'm going to say class name. So this is going to have margin bottom of 4, bg gray of 50, rounded lg, padding of 3, shadow. For this internal view, I'm going to have a flex of row. So class name flex of row, justify of between, right? Save. So for this particular view, I'm going to have, there is no styling for this one. So class name for this, it's going to be text sm font of semi bold. Here again, class name, it's going to be equals to text xs. Okay, and I'm going to say text gray of 500 format. And here I'm going to say class name for paid by, again text xs, text gray of 500. Here I'm going to have a class name that is going to be equals to text xs again, and then text gray of 500. And for the inner view, I'm just going to paste in the styles for this. So let's try to save the file. Let's try to add. I'm just going to say sightseeing, something like this, and category sightseeing, amount I'm going to say 500 rupees, and everyone, and then add expense. And boom, just like that, we're able to see that expense being generated, and we're able to view that particular expense onto the screen as well. So this, let's add it as rupees, and you can even try to delete the expense as well. Let's say delete over here. Okay, I think for some reason it's blocking this one, so I'm just going to say delete, and boom, just like that, it is deleted. Let's add new one. Let's say food. Yeah, food is there. Amount I'm going to say 1000 rupees. I'm going to say everyone, and then add expense. As you can see, just like that, the budget for this particular trip is set, and as and when you keep on adding new expenses, it is gonna come and add over here. So let's say flight, let's write that properly, flight, and let's say 5000 rupees. I'm going to say everyone, and then add, and just like that, we're able to see all of the expenses for this particular trip. Okay, and even the total is getting added. So that's it about the final part, that is how to implement the budget for this particular trip. If you really want to add it in the backend, just try to implement a simple endpoint and just try to have in all of these expenses as the details, and you can create a expense model and tag it to the trip, and you can try to create that in the backend. So yes, that's it about this project. So we basically learned about how to create a trip and how exactly to add places to a trip, create itineraries, and also look into the map screen. And we were also able to design all of these nice UI elements using native Wind. And yeah, that's it about this project. If you find this interesting, please hit the like button and do subscribe for more such content. So yes, that's it about this video and this project. So let's see you next one, and then thank you for watching.